Hey, welcome back to another exciting edition of 90 Day Fiance. But in today's episode, I'm just going to talk about the K1 visa, which is a 90-day visa to come to the United States, and the process that you need to do, or the paperwork you need to do, and all the paperwork that you need to file with this paperwork in order for it to be approved. Now, you really don't need a lawyer unless you come from one of these countries that are like high fraud: China, Morocco, Philippines, Nigeria, India. And if you have one of these countries, that you probably would need a lawyer. I've done one for the Philippines that was approved. Of course, she messed up the interview. Everyone knows that already. And I did a K3, which is now a CR1. And I did that paperwork myself. So basically, it's not hard to do. You can do it yourself. But if you come from a high fraud country, you need to probably get an attorney or an agency to help you do it. That way you don't wind up getting it denied. And so let me go on and let's get to it. Thank you.
A K1 visa. I've done a K1 visa and it was actually approved, and I did the paperwork myself and went all the way up to the U.S. Embassy before it was denied by the embassy because the girls admitted to doing drugs, and I will discuss that later. So let's just get on to it. Step one. First, you need to find someone to get married to, because you can't apply for a K1 unless you have a fiance. And you need to be a U.S. citizen 18 years or older, but you cannot be a green card holder, so you cannot immigrate to the United States, obtain a green card, and then try to get a fiance visa. You need to be a legal U.S. citizen. And you need to be legally free to marry. In other words, you have to be divorced, single, or a widow. You can't be separated or going through a divorce. And you intend to marry within 90 days. So you know that once the fiance comes to the United States, you have 90 days to get married. So you got to be willing to be able to marry within those 90 days. You have to have met the person physically in person within the last 2 years. That doesn't mean you need to know them for 2 years. That means you need to at least met the person for 2 years. And you need to meet the income requirements. And if you don't meet these income requirements, you're probably going to be denied. But in some cases you won't if you can get a co-sponsor. And you will need your tax returns and pay stubs for it. And these are the income requirements for to be able to sponsor someone. And if you look here, there's armed forces, and then there are regular civilians. So, and Alaska and Hawaii are much higher only for the cost of living. And file the I-29F, pictures of you together with your fiance and their family members, because they look at if you have met the family. If you have not met the family, then they're going to wonder why. Is it being kept secret? Do they not like you? Whatever. Birth certificates, passports, passport photos. You need to submit passport photos for the visa application, and you need the passport to prove that you have met. Copies of plane tickets, your divorce record. So if you are divorced, you need to have those. Your tax returns to prove how much money you make. Bank statements, pay stubs to show like the last 2 months of your income. Fingerprints, employment records. And one thing they're trying to say now is have an engagement party and buy a ring to show that you really do have an intent to marry. Your shot records and the government forms that they're requiring to use when you apply for the visa, and I will talk about them in a little bit. You also need notarized affidavits from people who can testify about the relationship. And this could be people saying that they've known you two were dating for 3, 4, 5 years. That's good. Background checks and police checks. You want to have these in order to turn in when you do the interview. And in some cases, you may need a back. A major form you're going to need to fill out, the major one, is the Form I-29F. And when you file it, you need to file with a $535 fee. And the information required for you and your fiance is your name, both names, full names, contact information, which is your mailing address, phone number, emails, or any other information to be able to contact you. Your work history, your social security number, and for your fiance, they may need a government number because they have an equivalent in some countries of a social security number. Any aliases that you use, your employment history, in some cases that may be for the last 5 years. Your parental information, so you need to know all the information about your parents, the date of birth, their occupations. Previous marriages, this is very important because they need to know if you're divorced and how many marriages you had. Your citizenship status, are you a natural born citizen or did you immigrate? If you had previous filings, this could be a cause for termination of your K-1 visa if you are filing too closely to a divorce or separation or even a death, because they're going to wonder why you're filing so closely and how many you have filed. And if you use any interpreters or preparers to do your paper or your application, they need to sign also. Your fiance is going to need the passport, and they're going to need to know the passport number, the issue date, the expiration dates, and any places they have traveled to. And if they have any children, the address they expected to live in the USA, which would probably be your address. Sometimes they may have asked for information in the native language, like their name, just to make sure that there's no misspelling or miscommunication on the name. The embassy they're expected to use, criminal past, marriage broker, and I'll discuss that later. Waivers for the petitioner, which means if you were married or you filed a K-1 numerous times, or if you have criminal activities, you may need to ask for a waiver. And biographic information on your fiance. So you need to turn in a package. And in this package, you need to have a cover letter signed and dated with an introduction of yourself and a list of the contents of the package, which is going to be the I-29F, the G-1145, which is the application petition, notification of acceptance, the 325A's petitioner's biographic information, proof of citizenship, this is the birth certificate or a copy of birth certificate or naturalization naturalization paperwork, passport photos, a short statement of how you met, and you might want to talk about it as your relationship, how it blossomed, how you love each other, and any divorce decrees or death certificates, a letter of intent to marry, and other required documents, say you change your name or marriage brokers, and a check or money order for the $535. They want their money. The G1145 is just a short little thing. All it has is your full name, your email address, and your phone number, and that goes in the front in case they need to contact you. The 325A is actually, you need to make 5 copies of this. So you have to fill it out 5 times. And it's just the background information on the alien fiance. Their full name, parental information, which is names, date of birth, the occupations, any spouses they had, either present, former, or deceased, and the dates of their marriage. Their residences for the past 5 years. Last address consistent over a year outside the U.S. Employment history for the last 5 years, any occupation abroad, and any foreign countries visited. That's the alien fiance. You need to use the 325A biographic information signed and dated, attached 2x2 U.S. passport photos. Probably about 5 or 6 will be fine, with the name written on the back any divorce decrees for them, and certified copies or death certificates. But if it's in a country where English is not the primary language, you're going to need to have it notarized and translated into English, and a letter of intent for them to say they will marry you within 90 days of arriving into the United States. And I would recommend submitting like birth certificates, the passport information, so photocopies, and any stamps of them visiting into the United States. And if you're doing one from the Philippines, you may need a sinamar, which is a proof of singleness, unmarried. And then you need proof of a relationship, or you met the person. And any documents you turn in are not going to be returned. So that's very important. And this step is very important in establishing a relationship. You need to take a lot of photos together and label and date them with the locations of you together. Your airline tickets and boarding passes, any travel receipts you have, like hotels, the dates and locations and places that you met, went to, traveled to, stayed at, and any correspondence just to prove there's an ongoing relationship. This would be like regular letters you sent in the mail, emails, Facebook messages, any chat logs, Skype, messages on the phone, let's see, Line, Instagram, whatever. And some people are saying now buy an engagement ring. That helps out a lot. All right, so if you get the NONA saying it has been accepted and the NOA2 saying it's going to the embassy, don't lose it. You may need them later. And step 2, the notice of action. And betwixt 2 to 3 weeks after mailing out the package, you'll get a notice that it has been received. You don't need to do anything here. And then step 3, about 2 to 3 months later, you'll receive another one saying it's either been approved or denied. Or you may need to have additional evidence or fix the petition itself. I actually had one sent back saying, because I left a check mark out. And that was like 5 months later. Oh, that's irritating. Just one check mark. So if it's approved, it goes to the next step. And it'll go to the National Visa Center for the next step. If you need to fix an error, just fix it out where they tell you to fix it and then send it back to them. And if you are denied, you may need to either file an appeal or get a lawyer or show the request for evidence information they are asking for. And step 4, it goes to the National Visa Center. This is where they're going to approve or deny your visa, because they're going to do a background check on your fiance. And basically, this happens within 2 weeks of your approval. And they'll run a security check on your fiance. You don't need to do anything in the mail at this point. You just have to sit back and wait. But if you want to verify, you can call this number or go to the State Department. And you don't need to do anything. And step 5, it goes to the embassy after everything's been cleared and approved. And let's see. It goes to the consular affair, that's the State Department, and then they'll send it to the embassy and they will schedule the next step. And the next step is the embassy letter, which they send to the fiance, instructing them where and how to get the medical exam and what documents they need to bring to the interview. And you do not have to attend the interview. All right, once you get your documents ready, or the embassy will send you a list of documents, and they will instruct you what to bring to the embassy immediately, and the other documents you will need for the interview, which will be like the background check, the birth certificate notarized, the health check, and all that, and shop records and good stuff like that. But one of the steps is the medical exam. And it will explain to you where and how to get the medical exam. And to let you know, only approved hospitals will be allowed to do the exam. So Dr. Hutchbud down the back alley is not going to be able to do it. In the Philippines, it's St. Luke's, and you must pay a fee for the medical exam, and it varies between countries, and you have to pay in the local currency, not US dollars. And the US applicant doesn't need to do anything, and they cannot pay for the physical. It has to be paid at the time of the physical. And the exam consists of like shot records, so you get your shots updated. They're going to do a TB test. If you have TB, that could be a grounds for disqualifications. They'll ask questions about your medical histories, and they'll do blood tests and other stuff for the physical. And one thing that you might want to consider is St. Luke's Hospital in the Philippines is very notorious for asking questions about drug use and then reporting that to the embassy. And depending on what drug it is, your visa may be denied. And step 9, you go to the interview. You bring your passport, and if you're bringing children, you need to bring the children too. And if they're joining on the K2, they must attend the interview. They'll be asked questions also. The package is going to explain how to set up the interview, and the U.S. citizen is not required to attend the interview, but in some countries they do allow it. And there's another $265 fee paid to the embassy. Gotta get their money. And there'll be a series of questions they ask, like when's their birthday, what kind of car they drive, what kind of job they had, when did you meet, stuff like that. Because when you file initially, you're going to say how you met, and they want to see if the stories match up, and they want to know how much the person knows about the fiance. So if they go in there and they said, how old is he? I don't know. What's he do for a living? I don't know. When's his birthday? Oh, I don't know. How many brothers and sisters have? Oh, I don't know. Have you ever talked to him? He doesn't talk. No, I haven't talked to him. So then it's going to be kind of like, oh boy, they're not going to look up that pretty good. So they need to know information to see how much you know. And then if everything goes right, the visa will be issued. And sometimes you can pick it up the same day, but usually it's a week upwards to a month, depending on how busy the embassy is. And it should be delivered to your house via courier, or you might have to go pick it up. And it's a self-adhesive decal that's placed into the fiance's passport. And once that's been sent out and given to him, then you can actually buy a ticket and go to the United States. And if more information is needed, they'll ask you for that more information to provide and bring it to the embassy, and then they'll make a decision. Once the visa's been issued, you have 6 months to travel into the United States, and you'll give a big package to drop off at customs or immigration when you get your passport stamped when you enter the United States. And the sponsor does not need to travel with the spouse or fiance. And once you get into the United States, now you have the 90 days to get married from that day. Or if no wedding happens, you have to leave the United States. The K1 visa beneficiary, the fiance, can only marry the person who submitted the petition. So they can't say, oh, I don't want to marry him, but I'll marry him instead. And once you get married, you have to file an adjustment of status. And once you do that, you get the green card. There's no deadline for that, but you do have to file a form saying that you actually were married within 90 days. However, if you don't do the adjustment of status, they're not going to be able to work, and they're not going to be able to leave the country until that's filed. And if you have children under 21, you need to file a K2 for the children and include that in the I-29F application. Once they arrive, you can file an I-765 in order for them to be able to work, and it takes about 3 months for them to get there. Okay, there are grounds for disapproval, so there's things that you could do or something that could happen which would cause you to be disapproved for the visa. HIV is no longer a grounds for disapproval, but I think TB or tuberculosis may still be. K1 visa will be denied if someone has committed serious criminal acts or moral turpitude, like prostitution or pimping, human trafficking, drug trafficking, and stuff like that. If they're addicted to drugs, they have a communicable disease other than HIV. And like I said, TB is huge. And during the physical, if it comes back that they have STD or something, they may deny the visa. or they have a physical or mental disorder. So if they're crazy, like my ex-wife, they probably will deny it. And they're likely to become a public charge. That means if they're going to marry a person who has no money, they may look at that as this person has no means of supporting themselves, and their fiance in the United States has no means of supporting themselves. So it may be denied. Or they use fraud or other illegal means to try to enter the United States. Or they try to do some fraud on the application, which means they lied on the application, they altered the photos. But they also look at how many times the fiance in the United States has applied for a visa, how long they've known each other, how long they've been single, or if there's a pattern. So if they've done a lot of K-1 visas, then it probably will be denied. Or if they just got out of a divorce, and 3 months later they're already applying for the visa, then they think there might be a problem. Other reasons could be multiple K-1 visas, like I said, 2 more visas in the past. You have to get a waiver. I've only done 1 K-1 visa, and it was denied, but that was almost 14 years ago. You'll need another waiver. It had a K-1 approved within the last 2 years. If you need a waiver, just write a letter stating all the facts and talk about the previous filings. Ask that you request a waiver and attach that letter to the petition. The fiance is using a different type of visa to come to the United States for marriage, and not a K-1. That would be like a B2 tourist visa or working visa, but they're actually here to try to get married. Or coming to the U.S. on a different visa, not a K-1 or no visa. They just arrive at the airport, and they have that intent to get married, but not just visit the United States. Don't try to bring them on a tourist visa and with the intent to get married. There are stiff penalties, which includes up to 5 years in prison. And if your spouses or fiancés in the United States illegally, don't do a K-1. Just get a lawyer and see what else you can do. Like I said, the International Brokerage Act is an act where they do not want to have human trafficking or fraud. So you have to look at this. It is illegal to go to the Philippines and say that you're looking for a wife, or use a website that hooks people up with mail order brides. That's actually illegal. So you have to say if you met through a brokerage. And an international marriage broker is a corporation or business that charges fees to provide dating and matchmaking between U.S. citizens and foreign nationals. It has to be legal in the country that you're coming from. And so you could say, like in some Muslim countries, there are arranged marriages, so that would be okay. But these are not considered international marriage brokers. An international marriage broker would actually charge you to get married to somebody and say, here, this is her, this is him, you get married, give me $1,000. That would be illegal. Non-profit matchmaking of cultural religious nature. So if it's a Muslim or Islamic person trying to get married to somebody, say in their ethnic background, nation of origin, then sometimes there are arranged marriages, and that might be okay. Dating services, online dating services, if they just a website where you sign up and you just meet somebody online and then you can do, that's not a date. That's not a marriage broker. But these have to charge the same rates for the men as the women. And I do know they do not do that. Like some websites will charge a guy $5-6 just to get an email of a girl. So that's not good. Includes up to 5 years in prison.